teaching, and I'm the first speaker of the proposition. I'll be introducing our main points, defining the key terms, and provide rebuttals at the end of our speeches during the reply speech. Now, this House stands strongly with the motion, individual lifestyle changes are insufficient in addressing climate change. Now, to define the key terms, climate change can be explained as long-term shifts in weather patterns or temperatures, and has been naturally occurring for a while. However, recent human activity has sped up the process greatly. Now, lifestyle changes are basically behavioral changes and habit modifications. All right, now to move on to the actual points. First of all, efforts to be more eco-friendly as an average individual will be fruitless, as there are people like Taylor Swift who emit 520 times more carbon than the average person. This was caused by all of her private jet tours during her Eras tour. And this shows us that if people like this, they know that what they do has a terrible effect on our environment, however, they do nothing to stop it. Same can be said about other celebrities who frequently go on their private jets, like Jay-Z and Beyonce. All right. Secondly, we bring up the importance and remind everyone that we're not the biggest contributors towards climate change. Companies and big corporations that take advantage of poverty-stricken, underdeveloped countries' natural resources are the real contributors to climate change. Unless we start pressuring and limiting the production of these corporations, they will not change, and our environment will just keep getting worse as the years progress. Right. To add on, the more we as ordinary people decrease our carbon footprint, the more they increase their emissions, so that they can villainize us and make us seem like the real bad people who are destroying the planet, when in reality they are masking how bad they are doing to our environment. And they will not be here to experience the consequences that their actions have on our climate. In fact, our younger generation will. All right. Something we all need to accept is that the greed of these corporations will be the reason of our demise, and the reason that our Earth ends up a wasteland. All right. While we are on that topic, I would like to bring up how manipulative and exploitative it is for governments and big corporations to target citizens when discussing climate change, covering up the crimes they commit against Mother Nature. It is not reasonable for them to tell us to stop using plastic straws when they spill thousands of tons of crude oil into the sea every single year. It's not fair to tell us not to waste food, whilst they simultaneously throw away hundreds of donuts that don't get sold by the end of the day, and not allow their employees to give it out to homeless people or bring it home. It's not acceptable to tell us to source our meat sustainably when they test on animals. Now, to move on to the next point, we would like to bring up how we as regular people do not have the money, influence, or the power to do anything. The ones that do have all three of those things are the ones who cause the climate change most. And instead of using the money to pay reparations and mend the environment, they spend it on fancy sport cars and private jets that actually destroy the environment even more. Moving on, in recent years, deforestation has spiked up carbon levels significantly. Trees absorb and store CO2 and release it into the air once they are cut. And the increase in deforestation is because of the need for new cities and agriculture, as well as production. And these are some of the biggest reasons why our efforts in the end are not going to make a single dent in climate change. To conclude, big corporations cause majority of climate change, and we should push eco-friendly ideals onto them, not to ordinary people who can barely afford to get by. And something else I'd like to add is how expensive it can be to live sustainably. Solar panels and wind turbines, they're not something that we can incorporate into our daily life and use it effectively as these big companies can. They should be the ones providing solar-powered electricity for us. They should be the ones building up wind turbines and dams so that they can make our Earth a better place while also providing us what they need to do. We all need to accept the fact that our changes and our contributions will not make a dent unless we start pressuring these governments to start forcing these companies to start paying tax for carbon. Like, for example, in Sweden. Thank you.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, judges and fellow debaters. We are Team Opportunity Coalition from Year Beginning International School of Mongolia. My name is Tannen, and I'm the first speaker of opposition team. So, as you guys are saying, individual's lifestyle is insufficient to be a fit to climate change. But the thing is it really that way? Let's figure it out, shall we? Okay. First and foremost, after the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s, human activities have been the main driver of climate change, primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and etc. It generates greenhouse gas emissions that are like blanket around the Earth, trapping the sun's heat and rising the temperature of the world. As an individual myself, I can try simple stuff like taking public transport, riding bicycles to school or whatever, but it sounds lame and boring, right? Does it do anything? Like, you may think it won't do anything, but it actually does, slowly but surely. According to Paul Print, in their research, it says that the average carbon footprint of a person per year is 7 tons. You can't imagine how 7 tons is. So let's just think of an example. 7 tons of carbon emission is the exact same as 2 return airplanes from London to all the way to Hong Kong. So it is really a big deal if you think about it. So let's talk about population, shall we? In the world, there's over 8 billion people. So each of us start deducting our carbon emissions a bit by bit. We will surely be able to achieve something. It's not something that we can really change. It's something we can do about it. All right. Furthermore, there's this one time that the Earth would actually, the entire Earth actually agreed on something, only once. In the 1980s, scientists discovered a hole in the ozone layer. This was caused by a gas called CFC, which stands for chlorofluorocarbon. And if we kept using it, ozone layer would have been destroyed by now. To simply put that in a phrase, it was done for us. But all 200 nations agreed on a simple agreement and cut out the CFC and stopped using or producing it. And we actually managed to resolve that big issue for every single one of us. So if we all agree and start making simple changes to our lifestyle, we will surely be able to achieve something. And it's not something that you can change or fix. Thank you.
Good morning, esteemed educator, honorable audience, and respected opposition team. My name is Amina Jambalat, and I am from the UEIS team, and I will be representing the second speaker of the proposition team. So without further ado, let's start with my point. Now, it's an undeniable fact that how global warming has grown in importance in recent years. It has been years when I say that governments have been trying to look for answers. During their quest for answers, they eventually come to the conclusion that individuals are the main perpetrators and attempt to persuade households and families to alter their own distinctive lives. And no, I'm not saying that one person's shift won't make a difference. Rather, I firmly think that businesses and prominent people should be the primary targets of change, given that they emit about 1,000 times more carbon dioxide than the average human. According to a documented article published in recent years under license from the UCAR, depending on nation, the average person globally emits 4 tons of carbon. According to a recently published study by the emission monitoring organization Greenly, the primary cause of roughly 3,000 tons of carbon emission is predicted to have been sent into the environment via travel via jets and planes by a single prominent figure. This really shows us how easily an individual's efforts to address climate change by changing their lifestyle is destroyed and over-dominated by businesses and other individuals. Additionally, I don't think it makes sense to concentrate primarily on an individual change when large corporations and organizations contribute to polluting the environment and releasing carbon into the atmosphere. A study that was done to determine the amount of carbon emissions that businesses cause was reported in a late news piece. It indicates that roughly 100 large corporations account for 71% of global emissions. The majority are, to mention a few, fossil fuel using energy suppliers, coal mining firms, and oil extraction businesses. Furthermore, large amounts of carbon dioxide are released into the atmosphere by nations like USA, China, and such. The primary case of these emissions is the production or manufacturing of goods by businesses, which use energy and resources primarily from energy providers that use non-renewable energy resources or unethical transportations, etc. It's arguable to say that consumers are to blame to purchasing these manufactured goods, but a closer examination reveals that businesses employ various different marketing tactics to make the appeal of the product grow. Additionally, when more people desire to purchase the product, the appeal grows. This leads to an increased production, which raises carbon emissions. Not only do commercial enterprises emit carbon dioxide, but the majority of large firms in the utility and energy business sector also do so by burning fossil fuels or extracting resources for energy generation is their primary objective. A far greater good outcome would arise if businesses were to subject a limit or restriction on their carbon emissions production. Now, to take an example, Denmark has ensured ambitious climate actions by passing the 2020 climate net into law. The Climate Act sets a target to reduce Denmark's greenhouse gas by 70% in 2030 compared to 1990 levels and a long-term objective of climate neutrality by 2050 at the latest. Since 2005, the country has accomplished a 23% reduction in their carbon in net emissions. According to the Danish government itself, it has been mainly due to energy sector developments. Moving on, deforestation is inevitable to be changed by simple lifestyle changes of an individual. It accounts to be one of the biggest driving factors of climate change, and there's only limited solutions that can be applied to somewhat reduce this case. So, to start off, what is deforestation? It's the purposeful clearing of land, and throughout history into modern times, forests have been raised to make space for agriculture and animal grazing, and to obtain wood for fuel and manufacturing and construction. Our third speaker would sum up the rest of this idea, and that will be all for today. Thank you.
And I'm a member of the opposition team, and I would like to clarify on a few points and rebut against a few points that the proposition team has made. An individual's contribution to climate change cannot be understated. The proposition have argued that an individual's share in the carbon footprint pales in comparison to those of which the large corporations, especially large industries, hold. However, these arguments overlook the long-term effect of a society shifting towards environmentalist lifestyles. As the number of people donning on progressive lifestyles, either through increased recycling or perhaps biking, so will the size of the shift in society's political attitude towards environmentalism, which can lead to a cascade of events helping bring massive changes from a tiny change. Furthermore, admittedly, the greatest effect that switching to alternative lifestyles can only occur in developed countries. As the first speaker mentioned, popular artist Taylor Swift often uses a jet that has massive amounts of carbon emissions, and what individuals can do to combat that is by using politicians. And the first speaker also noted that the politicians can be corrupt, but what I believe that the proposition team is missing is that politicians are for the people, by the people. And in other words, that the politicians are influenced by people themselves. They can be elected, they can be pulled out of power whenever the people see fit. Furthermore, what an individual can also do to further help combat against climate change is radical environmentalism and protesting. A well-known case of radical environmentalism and environmentalism against a climate crisis is in the early 80s during the CFC ozone hole layer. The United States government created a bill that would involve the production and manufacturing of a particular jet that would fly through the stratosphere and release a specific gas that would eat away at the ozone layer. However, environmentalists caught wind of this, and many of them formed groups and protested down Washington, D.C., helping bring down the bill and changing the government. Furthermore, to continue what I said earlier, people can choose people can choose the types of people in power. That's what elections are for. If enough people don on a progressive lifestyle and choose a much more eco-friendly lifestyle, then it is only a matter of time when those in office begin to reflect those policies, those beliefs into their policies. Furthermore, to add on to my team's points, as technology develops, it becomes much more easier to be eco-friendly. For instance, solar panels, recycling bins, all that becomes more sophisticated and cheaper as time goes on, as technology develops. As a rebuttal against the first speaker's point, perhaps greater grounding is required in some points, as I believe that the point about politicians may be unfounded. In particular, and these regulations that I talk about so often, if the politicians refuse to regard them, if the politicians refuse to reflect the people's beliefs, then people have the right to protest and make changes happen through force and that'll be all. Thank you for listening.
Good afternoon, esteemed judges, fellow debaters, and audience. I am the first speaker of the proposition. Now I'll be responding to the opposition's arguments and points and going over what my teammates have previously stated. Now, firstly, to mention what was previously stated by my team, we have found that individual changes and lifestyle shifts are not sufficient to address climate change at all on a large scale. As recent studies by the UCAR, the University of Atmospheric Research and General Climate and Carbon Emission Monitors, companies and prominent celebrities and figures have been found to create way more carbon than the average person worldwide. But many country governments try to focus on individual change when the average person has been found to create an average of 4 tons of carbon annually, while the average celebrity creates an average of 3,000 tons of total CO2 emissions. Moreover, companies are known to use fossil fuels for energy, unethical transporting methods, and excessive use of packaging, and such are main driving factors that contribute to our worldwide carbon footprint. As a late news article under the license of Guardian has stated that an average of 100 big companies contribute to 71% of our total carbon emissions and food waste dumping. And an even more extreme example are energy providing companies that primarily burn fossil fuels and extract oil, coal mining, etc., etc. With this information, I find it absolutely baffling that governments and society try to put the focus and blame onto the individual people when companies and celebrities actively try to hide their carbon emissions and excessive production and food waste, and go on how people should change to save the environment. Now, given that, if we shift focus onto company carbon emissions by implementing carbon limit, use of ethical transportation, etc., etc., a bigger positive result will be seen. And for solutions, we can boycott and/or band together to sign petitions or vote for government representatives to restrict carbon emissions or waste dumping from companies with the use of our governments. And it has been done before. Denmark has set goals to reduce carbon emissions by communicating with their government, Denmark society. And a recorded 23% of carbon emission reduction has been recorded in Denmark. And many commercial companies also try to incentivize people to buy more product by using marketing tactics like celebrity promotion. With this information, governments should put more focus into company regulation of carbon emissions to sufficiently address climate change. Furthermore, deforestation is among the most prominent factors of climate change. It's occurring all over the world and has become a very large issue. Ever since the 1960s, human and company activity has led to a large increase in deforestation in local areas. And it's common knowledge, with less trees, more CO2 will stay in our atmosphere, causing climate change. And it not only affects our planet, but affects us individually. But governments still try to put emphasis onto individual people instead of using their power to try and stop deforestation or carbon emissions, as the government has the true power to fully regulate and stop company deforestation. Now onto my rebuttal. As the opposition team has stated, that fossil fuels are a big problem, and if we band together by doing like taking bikes, public transportation, it will impact climate change immensely. It is difficult to try and band together and work together to reduce carbon emissions, as people have their own lives to look after. And then even if we band together, it is nearly impossible for everyone to agree and dramatically shift people's lives. And to this day, everyone knows that you can do something and it will impact climate change. But 79% of people who know don't take action. It is unreliable to rely on this belief. Now, in conclusion, judges and fellow debaters, my team strongly believes that to successfully and sufficiently address climate change, we must put more focus on the emphasis on companies and other larger factors that contribute to carbon emissions and such. But by getting our world governments to make more restrictions or take solutions from the people instead of focusing on individual change only. Thank you for listening.
Good afternoon, esteemed judges and fellow debaters. I, the third speaker of the opposition team, is here to defend our points and, if possible, rebut the points made by the opposition team. Okay. First of all, it is said that being eco-friendly is really expensive. It'll cost money that some certain people don't have. But I find this simply wrong, because in certain ways you can actually be eco-friendly without spending a lot of money. For example, I love riding bikes. Instead of riding a car which already emits a lot of greenhouse emissions while in production, and even after in production, the cars already make a large amounts of greenhouse gas emissions. So, compared to that, bikes doesn't produce way much more greenhouse gases after they've been produced, and even after they've been produced, they don't continuously produce greenhouse gas emissions to the atmosphere. And that is an example of how you can be eco-friendly while saving money individually. And also, it is stated that corporations are the main contributors to emission. Let's think of this. So why are these corporations are the main contributors to global greenhouse gas emissions? It is because of individuals like us. It is because mindless consumerism that fed this negative monster that negatively affect our climate. It is because of us, these massive corporates are really powerful and able to go free without any punishment or any persecution. And also the proposition team that stated that governments are blaming us, the individuals, for these green gas emissions. It is true in some ways, but I don't think the government is actually blaming us in global emissions. And governments are, in some countries, governments are actually actively trying to prevent corporations from promoting individual eco-friendliness and corporations alike in certain countries. And it's also said that corporations should be boycotted and removed from economies. But some nations depend on these corporations. Some nations, some families depend on these corporations to actually live a healthy, live a comfortable life. If we boycott this corporation, it could affect some nations very negatively, that it could result in some people losing their livelihood and living a way more terrible life than before. And that is all. Thank you for your attention.
And I will be wrapping up this debate by enumerating over my team's points and the opposition team's points. Firstly, the proposition team made a point about concerning Taylor Swift and her contributions to climate change through jet emissions. And to that, we would like to question: is Taylor Swift not an individual? Doesn't that imply that an individual's actions can, in fact, change climate change? Furthermore, corroborating on a previous point, a company's job is to attract consumers, not the other way around. If the company loses its consumer base, it is inevitably going to lose itself in the process, meaning making it sustainable for people to protest against companies that make a lot of carbon emissions. Furthermore, we believe that radical environmentalism can have a hand in reducing carbon emissions, and the proposition team also noted that politicians are often corrupt and do not reflect the beliefs of the people, and the opposition team noted that that was not the case. In conclusion, we believe that the proposition team made a lot of valid and clear points, and that the proposition team made a lot of ambiguous and perhaps ungrounded claims concerning the climate change crisis. An individual's impact on climate change can, in fact, be massive, and I would hope that every person in this room recognizes that.
So let me state clearly before I move on to my reply speech that it has been a very enjoyable experience debating with you, and we love the insights that you've provided. However, there were some points that didn't really seem plausible or had some parts that weren't explained properly. As our second speaker has stated, 70% of all carbon emissions were emitted by just 100 companies. One person adopting a lifestyle that's sustainable can barely make a change. Even if we were to 1/3 of the earth were to band together and just, let's say, stop using plastic, single-use plastics forever, it would not make a dent to this. 70% of it are still being emitted by these companies. Now, secondly, the first speaker has stated that riding bikes instead of cars were effective. However, they have not actually cited an example of this. And the second speaker has said that our arguments do not mention how our world is slowly shifting towards environmentalism. However, we would like to state that in a world where only the rich have the power, we barely have power and money to stop these corporations from poisoning our land. And they've also stated that the first speaker, I, said that politicians were corrupt. However, we never said that. If I cite exactly what I said that the people that have all three of those, money, influence, and power, were the perpetrators of the effects of climate change. That means that I was referring directly towards big corporations that spill oil or extract oil without limits. They spend it on fancy sport cars and new private jets. That's what I said, and that was about, I think they misunderstood what I was trying to imply. I was trying to imply that big corporations and their CEOs were doing this. Now, they've also said that Taylor Swift is an individual, so wouldn't her, shifting her habits to become more environmentally friendly be an example of that? Well, she's a prime example of a rich individual who has the power to stop affecting the climate as much as she can. However, she refuses to do it. She knows how much that her actions are affecting the environment and the people in it. However, she refuses to change. And also she's backed up by a company that is encouraging her on these travels and vast travels and things like that. They have also said that we are mindless consumerists, us people. And this is nothing personal, but they've also stated that it is our fault that these companies are very popular. However, they also, after that, they wind back and they say that, these poor countries, they do not, they can't afford to do things. And yeah, thank you.
Very well organized structure and very strong ending. You were very fluent and firm and strong, clear and loud. You were very confident. I think you had great strategy.
Okay. From my side, I think you, again, had a really good presence overall. I think you had a really great tonal emphasis, so you knew when to emphasize where on your words to really drive a point and make it emotional. I think the introduction is really great. It's very clear that you know the topic and you've done your research. You have your notes prepared. You gave real-life implications. You even gave food for thought for even us judges to really consider some things. I think you had a really great conviction, strong conviction in what you were saying overall. I think the strategy was clear. I think you knew what you were getting into, how you're going to structure it. And also just overall it was fast, but I think you took great pauses and you were great on timing. And you managed to do that all in 5 minutes. That was exceptionally well. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, our next speaker, Tanam. You had a very good introduction, and I liked the way you analyzed that one example. I think it was very constructive and fluent and firm, and you had very good pauses. Yeah, generally very good.
Yeah. Yes, I think I really enjoyed the fact that you gave research references. So you already probably had that ready. That was good. You gave a good background introduction. I think, though, you could have given a bit more stronger points, or maybe examples to your points. But in general, I think you had a very great body composure, very open. I think you connected with us. The only thing is you had a mask on, but that's, I guess, your personal preference, and that's fine. And again, I think you just needed to have a little bit more structure to what you were saying. But yeah, overall, good job.
Okay, our next speaker. Very great structure, plenty examples. And I really liked that your voice is so soft, but your points are so strong. It's a good comparison for me. Clear and very confident. The only thing is, if you could connect to the other team, their points, their arguments, that would be better. And you stick to your script all the time.
Yeah. I think in general, your group was in very good sync. I really like that Amina came up and again reiterated and really backed up what Marlujan was talking about. She talked about, listed out the faults of the individuals on the effects of climate change with an actual chain effect. And I could really visualize it. I think you were really good at that. I like that you gave kind of like a point to the opposition team, but then took it back by saying by giving a good rebuttal. That's a good strategy. Again, I think you were great, but again with the notes, maybe you were reading too much, staring a little bit too down. But again, that's just something you can work on. So yeah, great job, Amina. Yep.
Good job. Okay, our next speaker. You had a very good structure, and I liked that you made a good comparison between the two arguments, and you responded to the arguments they made from the other side of the team, and you were confident and clear. I really liked your vibe. Like other team was like shooting bullets, but you're like taking it easy and explaining everything in a very chill way, right? I like that. Good job.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. You seem like you have a suit on and everything, but you seem very chill. Like you're really enjoying being here. That's great. So yeah, I like that you had a very clear beginning. I think, what did you say? Oh, right. You really gave really good examples on how individuals also influence decision makers. At first I thought you were just going to state it and not really back it up, but then you backed it up with examples, and I'm very glad you did. It's very clear that you listened well to your proposition team. You took notes. Again, good eye contact. I wish you could have given more examples on how technology is really giving an effect on individuals. That would have been great, because you just kind of left it at that. But yeah, overall, listened well, took notes. If you have maybe structured your notes a little bit more, that would just be my feedback. But yeah, great job. Yeah.
All right, our next speaker.
Bilgun
Tux. Very great summary with plenty examples and with all the good statistics. Good job. And very clear points, and you responded to the arguments. That was good. And you had very good posture, very confident and fluent, firm and strong. That was really good, fantastic strategy. And I think you have a very good understanding on the topic. Mm-hmm. When the other team was talking, I noticed that you were taking notes, you were trying to defend your team at the end. That was good. Awesome job.
Yes, again, I took note. Like you're like a future politician or
yes.
something. I like your little, young Sheldon.
Right?
Yes. I like that you, at some point you like leaned in and I was like, ooh, he's about to tell a speech. And I really like your style. I love that combination but that's neither here nor there. You redrove your points again. I think you made a great comparison between rebuttaling, the comparison between celebrities and individuals. I think you had an excellent knowledge of the topic. I think when you came out, it made me feel like all of your group particularly, they're just very united, very in sync. As if you're just, I don't know, kind of like one body, one mind, and that's really good. I like that you gave solutions on actually tackling climate change. I wrote the great style in there, it's in there. Great strategy. The only thing was that you were over time by 28 seconds, but again, that's just something you could work on in the future. That's fine. All right, next. Jennifer.
Our last speaker, you had a good summary, and you summarized everything as the last one who presented, and you had good examples, but you could improve the organization of what you said and connect to our daily lives. That would be better. And you were fluent and confident, also chill vibe. This team is just so chilled and so positive. I like this so much. Good job, everyone.
All right, so what was it? Oh, right. So I think you came out, even though I feel like you had a bit of weak examples, you still managed to kind of turn the tables on saying how large corporations were the driving force behind, mass consumerism. But I wish you kind of just went in there and really drove it home. I think you're chill, but you're nervous. So I don't know what's happening. You seem to be a little bit, again, self-soothing, kind of all over the place, shifting from side to side. And again, that's just something that it's very easy to do. I think if you just keep doing this more and more, you'll get a hang of it and just become a bit more confident. But yeah, in general, I think your rebuttal could have been stronger. So again, for you, I would say just listen carefully, and when you make your notes, make it make sense. I personally have that issue, so when I take notes, I'm taking notes, but they're not structured. So if your notes are not structured, then you can't really speak well, right? So again, that's just something you can get better at, no worries, but great job. Yeah.
Good job. All right.
Yes.
I liked the question you threw out at the other team to emphasize your point. I liked that. That was good. And good summary. You mentioned a lot of things at the very end. The only thing is you were trying to look back, maybe for support or for something like, help me, I don't want to be here. But overall, it was good. Also, you could utilize your time better. You had maybe 1 minute left, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish we could give you more time to prepare. But good job.
I think my comments are the same. I think you could have really used that 1 minute because, every second counts, and you could have really gone in there and made some good points. I think, I agree with her, you started off strong with giving a question to the proposition team, but I don't think you were able to really fully summarize what your team was about. Not to say that you weren't good. I think as a whole team you were great, but against our proposition team today, it was a little weak. I think you do need more confidence, but again, I think you're just naturally good at being on the stage. I feel like we connected with you, right? Yeah. It's just something there, and you have your notes, but you're not really looking at it. It seems like you're really thinking about it while you're speaking, and so that shows me that one, you do have good knowledge in it. You have the you have the material in your head. It's just about, I guess, just more taking that stage presence and the knowledge that you have, and then just structuring it about a little bit more. But overall, I think you were great, and I love your suit. So, yeah. All right.